yoga. One day I went to the gym and I did the yoga class. I was the only man in the gym. I was like a toy by all these older women. They loved me, and I was the only
let's have a look. We're doing an experiment here to see what's wrong with the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. Okay. Just trying to get it back again.
Channel for
That's not it. You are part of an experiment now. Right.
channel for you're part of an experiment now. You're part of an experiment now.
Still rubbish. The same. It must be something to do with this computer.
Lauren,
It's my computer. Must be.
Lauren,
Yeah?
I do have to leave at 9 o'clock, so you know.
Okay. Okay.
It might be best to, if you want to sort it later so we can have more time to talk, you know.
Yeah. As I say, I have to test it with someone on.
If you want to sort it later so we can.
And as I say, they're not. It's just a complete waste of time. But yeah, I think it's good enough to do a quick interview anyway.
Yeah.
But it's a really annoying, squeaky thing. And you know, and it's not really fair on the audience. But this is the problem with Restream, they don't fix anything. You know, they
Hi there, welcome to the Hope Centre, and we're here to do some interviews with people that are talented, that are therapists, or have got a passion or a dream. And today is our first interview from the Hope Centre here in High Wycombe, and I'm Maria who does the bars method. So what is the bars, Maria?
So basically the bars is you have 32 bars in your head, which is related to different areas of your life. So it can be control, money, awareness, hope and joy. And what I'm doing is literally lightly touching all those points which are on your head that I know where, obviously I know what the points are. Lightly touching all these on your head, and it's just like decluttering. Say your brain's like a hard drive. So your brain is like, when I'm doing the bars, it declutters and creates more space. So it's like wiping it all out. So it's just creating more space, more. I don't know. It's really good for sleeping. It's really good for like negative chatter in your head.
Brilliant. So just to recap on what you said, it's a bit like a detox. A bit like when you say you're clearing out, a bit like when the computer, the hard drive gets too busy,
Yeah.
or there's too much on it, so you have a virus control or something, which
It's more-
is it?
It's more like it's just creating it's just wiping or cleaning all the stuff that you've ever had about those thoughts and feelings and limitations about money, about control, about awareness, and just like getting rid of it all so you can create more space.
That's really interesting. I have to say, I did have a bars method from Maria quite a while ago, and things have started to fly for me. I'm not sure whether it was that. I'd like to think it was part of it, but as you can see, things are flying for me, and I've now got a centre in High Wycombe. I've popped up in here, and so much seems to have happened, because I remember saying to you, I can't attract money and I can't attract success. And 2 months later, I can't remember, it was maybe the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Look where I am.
Yeah.
So obviously something changes when you have this.
Yeah.
So do you want to explain to us a little bit of where does it come from? What's the origin of the bar?
So basically, it's by a guy called Gary Douglas. He and his well, it's called Access Conscious Bars, and there's definitely other different methods, but the main one was bars. And what he did was he basically was asking quality questions. I can't remember the question right off the top of my head. I think it was something like, what would you know, perceive and be, or some, I really can't remember the question. And he asked the question out to the universe, and a couple of weeks later, a therapist or hypnotherapist rang him up and asked to be, he wanted a different method or something like that, something around those lines, and he channeled the points on the head.
Right.
So then he started to like, then he did the bars on other people and things were just like moving in their lives. So yeah, it's just it's amazing. I love it. I personally love it. I haven't done it for a while, but I do like doing it. It just gets rid of the negative chatter.
Okay, so
helps me.
sorry to stop you there. Why do you like it so much? Because you do have a passion for it.
Yeah.
So what is it about it that you like so much?
Personally for me, when I first did the bars, I saw loads of different like energy and stuff, but the second time I did it, like things just moved. Like I got the job I really wanted. I just seemed more clear, more focused, and it just seems like every time if I'm getting so like really stressed, then when I have the bars, it's just like relaxing, getting rid of all the crap, getting rid of all the just the day-to-day things, and just having like it's like a breath of fresh air sort of thing. It's just relaxing.
So when you actually have the treatment, do you have a treatment from someone else? Can you do it yourself?
You can do it yourself, but I prefer to do it. I think it's more better if someone else does it for you.
So do other groups, where therapists can work on each other, or so
Yeah,
you can actually get
There is
some help?
I did in the past a meet-up group which was based in London, and had people who are practitioners or facilitators who do bars, or people who just want to experience it the first time doing exchanges. I've stopped that at the moment, but hopefully in the future I might set it up again. Or if you meet someone learn the bars, and you can contact them and you can swap. So I have done it in the past. I haven't done it for a while, but I will get back onto it.
Wonderful. Well, you're here at the Hope Centre. We've got you here, and when are you coming here to do the bars? I mean, this program may not go on this week, but we're coming back in June as well. But if it does go on, when will you be coming back to do the bars here?
Well,
this week?
hopefully this week on Wednesday, and any other maybe Friday. I don't know. It depends on obviously you guys.
Right.
And I'm available whenever really. Like I'm just just doing it one-to-one for a while. Just starting to get the ball running with that. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Okay. Do you have a website or a way of people getting in touch with you?
I've got an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to say that, or would you rather we passed it on through moving on to?
Yeah, do that through moving on to TV, yeah.
So if you want to get in touch with Maria, you can come to the Hope Centre. If this does go on before we close this week, if not, you'll probably be here in June.
Yeah.
So we will be providing the bars method here in June. So please keep watching our programs, subscribe to our channel, and also we can tell you more about how Maria's getting on. So anything else you would like to say about the bars? I mean, are there any particular contraindications, for example, that you can't work on?
What do you mean, sorry?
Well, I mean, contraindications in the way, is there any people that in particular, any conditions to make it more clear?
Oh, okay, yeah, it's really good for children for exams, it's really good for children with anyone with ADHD, it's good for women who are pregnant, it's good for anyone and anybody, people who are really get burned out, you get tired, you get stressed, just day to day, like from work, whatever, it's really good for anybody and everyone, really.
Right.
There's no, you shouldn't be doing that. You can't.
So there's no contrary. That's why you didn't actually understand when I asked that question.
Okay, yeah.
Because a lot of therapies you can't actually use them when women are pregnant or certain conditions. You can't actually use certain therapies. But this is a bit like meditation.
Yeah, it's for everybody.
Where it's for everyone, and you can only benefit from it. That's amazing. So we look forward to seeing you in June.
Yep.
And having you do some treatments here at the Hope Centre. Is there anything else you'd like to say? all day.
Come and have your bars run. That's
So
what I'd
come and
say.
have your bars done.
Yeah.
Again, when Maria told me about the bars method, I was trying to figure out what could that mean, you know, because when I think of the word bars, I either think of going to have a drink in a bar or having a bar, you know, or bar chocolate. So it's really interesting the way you explain it, as we've explained, that we have these bars that go through the head of the skull, and I presume it's a bit like pressure points or reflexology, where it releases something and then you can start all over again. So as you can see, life does move on and great things are happening for a lot of us now because of all of these wonderful therapies. So thank you very much, Maria. I look forward to coming and do some work here at the Hope Centre. Take care. Guys, welcome to Moving On TV and welcome to the community show. We're back and we're back with extraordinary people that have got wonderful stories, and today I've got one of them, a unique man, Pete Lang. Hi Pete, lovely to have you
Pleasure,
today.
pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Now first of all, you come from America?
Yes, I was born and raised in the United States, and New York, born and raised in New York City. And when I went away to university, I went to the southern part of the United States, and now I consider North Carolina my home.
Okay, so as you can see, I've got the New York hat on, which is apt for Pete. So go on, so tell me a little bit, how long have you been in the UK?
I've been here for 4 years, and I work for the largest tobacco company in the world.
Okay.
All right, which is a place called Alliance One, and they are a wholesaler. So they buy it from the farmers, and then they sell it to the people who make cigarettes and whatnot.
Okay.
All right. And so my job is to keep all the computer systems that run all the factories that deal with all of this tobacco in Europe and Africa.
Wow,
And
interesting.
so the company headquarters is in the United States, and I've had the opportunity to go to Africa a number of times, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place, and the job opportunity came up to kind of take care of Africa, and I jumped on it. That's how I'm here.
Wow. Well, one of the reasons I've got you on Moving On TV, because everyone who comes on to Moving On TV is positive, is unique, is doing something to make the world a better place. Now, I know Pete from Unity UK Maidenhead, where we spread positive messages and sing and do all sorts of great stuff together. So tell me a little bit more about what you're doing with Africa, because that is a very inspiring thing.
Well, first time I was in Africa was with the Army, all right, and I was in Special Forces. I was a medic, and during the first Gulf War, the Americans pretty much trashed out the air base in Mombasa in Kenya, and then they just left, all right. So the Kenyans were not very happy with the Americans, and the Americans wanted to make nice, so they said, look, we'll rebuild your runway. We will send over a set of trainers, which was a Special Forces unit that was attached to go ahead and train a Special Forces unit for you, and which is parachuting. And then we'll also send over a medical team to go out to the desert and take care of people who haven't seen a doctor in a long time.
Right.
So
that's how you're basically contributing.
That's
by
right.
making sure that they get a medical team.
Well,
taken care of.
and actually, you know, here's the thing about it. We had one medic. We had 2 doctors, a vet, and a dentist. All right.
Okay.
And of all those, I would say the dentist and the vet were the most valuable.
Okay.
All right, because you've been to the doctor. You go and they write down what's wrong with you, and they say, all right, come back in 3 weeks, and then we'll look at it again. Well, in this situation, these people are never going to be seen by that doctor again. All right, what they can do is pretty limited. Whereas the dentist, if somebody has, usually what we ended up doing was pulling teeth. All right, somebody's got a tooth that hurts, and you pull it out, you have done them some good.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
And then with the animals, what we would do is we would inoculate them and deworm them. And that sounds kind of gross, I guess.
Yeah.
But what happened was all of the nutrition that was going to the worms was now being produced into meat and to milk that the families of the local villagers could consume. And when they heard that the Americans were coming and they were bringing, medicine for the animals, I mean, we'd come to a village and there were people there.
Right. Okay, so that's a bit of background news. Now, you're also very involved in Unity. Unity, as I say, is a very positive group.
that meets to promote abundance and healing and health and everything. But is it okay if I ask you a little bit about your story? Because I know you've been through a lot.
Yes.
You've been through a lot in life. I don't know enough about it, but I know you've
That's
been
okay.
through a lot in life, and yet you're a very positive, very bubbly, very loving, very giving human being. So do you mind telling us just a little bit about your personal history?
Well, I grew up a white kid in a Puerto Rican black neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in the hood. All right.
We got someone from the hood on Moving On TV and
That's right. That's right. A matter of fact, what's the name of that rap group? You know, there's a Christmas rap song about, you know, Christmas in Hollis, Queens.
Oh, don't ask me.
All right,
I don't know
well,
anything about rap.
all right.
So anyways,
but be
tell
as
me
it
more.
may, be more as a house is where I lived, and I didn't enjoy that very much. You know, most people tend to like wherever it was that they grew up is, you know, this is home. I never felt that way about New York.
Okay, so you
And
left.
so I left there and I went to school in Kentucky, and I at the University of Kentucky. And there isn't anything analogous to the feeling between the North and the South in the United States, in England. Closest thing might be Scotland and England, all right? In terms of, you know, we had, you know, they've had civil wars here, and we had a civil war in the United States, and the South lost, and they're still pretty angry about it. 150
Okay.
a year later, you know,
Okay.
and so I was from the North,
Right.
and they reminded me every day that I was from the North,
Right.
and that I really didn't belong there. So, but you know, made it through, and when I was a little kid, I decided I wanted to be a Green Beret. And then when the time came to graduate university, I went to a recruiter and said, you know, can you make me a Green Beret? And he said, yes, I can. And sign right here. And as it turned out, normally you have to be on your second enlistment, you have to have done all these things, but they were hard up for people. So they would take anybody, you know, that maxed out the entrance exams for the Army and was in good health, which fortunately I managed to do. So after college, I went into Special Forces, and then after that, you know, became a computer guy. All right, and you know, I've taught at all different levels. You know, 6th grade. What would they call 6th grade? I'm not exactly sure what it would be called here in Britain.
So sorry to stop you there, Pete.
Yeah.
So you came to the UK.
Yes.
But you went through some stuff in the UK, didn't you, with your children? Is that right?
Oh well. I've the only thing I had 2 daughters. One passed on before I came to the UK. All right. She got to as was what they call in the U.S. a one-car wreck, which means you did something stupid and you wrecked your own car, and it killed her instantly. And then my younger daughter, you know, when she graduated from university, you know, I promised her a trip wherever she wanted to go. She said, I want to go to England. So when and as I was here, we spent 2 weeks cruising around. Saw Shakespeare lived, and the ocean, and in Wales. We went all over the place.
So you came to England with your daughter and
Came with my wife.
with your wife?
Yes. I don't mean to sound like I've got an overly complex story, but
No, but we want to hear this because you're such a positive.
I came over with wife, and then life was pretty good. You know, we had our little place, and we had our way of life, and then my wife is Lebanese, and it is the duty of a Lebanese senior daughter to take care of her mother in her old age when she gets ill. So her mom got real sick one time, and my wife Nasia felt very, very guilty about it. But she didn't say anything to me, but she felt very, very guilty. So finally I said to her, girl, go back to the States. All right, you know, I can live here by myself for the rest of my contract, which was, at that point was 2.5 years. Now it's 11 months. I can take care of myself. All right, go take care of your mom. All right, so she did. So I've been here for the most part by myself, you know, and the people at Unity have been as close as I get to family and friends.
That's fantastic. So, you see, this is what I want to put across in Moving on TV is it's awful. I can't even imagine how it must feel to lose your child. But from the time I've known you, Pete, you are one of the most positive, enlightened, giving human beings that I know. So people are going through a lot these days, and one of the reasons that's why I wanted to bring you on to Moving on TV, because I want you to be able to say to people, how do you do it? How do you manage to rise above grief and the stuff that you've gone through, the pain, and carry on being such a lovely human being and a giving human being as well?
Well, because it's the best option.
Right.
All right, you know, people, anyone could find a good reason to be upset about the way life has treated them. All right, very, very few people, you know, have had perfect lives. All right, so I'm certainly not one. So I made a very, very painful thing happen, and we don't need to go into the details of it right now. And one of the places that I use as inspiration is the movie Gandhi. If you've never seen it,
Yes.
I strongly recommend it. And in the early bits of the movie, when he was still in South Africa, you know, a white punk knocks him into the street. All right, and so his minions brush him off, and they're outraged at this, and they ask Gandhi, well, what are we going to do? He says, I'm going to forgive him. What? Forgive him after he's done this outrage to you? And he said, look, all right, I'm not forgiving him for him. I am forgiving him for me. So that I don't think about it, I don't worry about it, and I can move on to bigger and better things. And at that point in time, that really helped me in a very, very difficult situation, and it is kind of one of the foundations of that I go through life of, you know, what's the point of being angry and upset and hurtful? How can I take this and make something positive out of it? And so when my daughter passed, you know, I committed my life to trying to make the world a better place. All right.
So inspiring.
And
So inspiring.
the cool thing I've discovered, and I'll share with your folks, is that making the world a better place doesn't have to be a big thing. All right. So, in other words, smiling at somebody the day that they are having a horrible day and considering suicide, and you happen to smile at them that day, and they say, well, you know, if that person smiled at me, maybe I'm not that terrible. Maybe I can go on another day. And that's all it took. All right. Now, quite frankly, I imagine that could have happened. I'll never know.
But you're trying.
But I'm
Doing
trying.
something.
I'm trying. You know, every person I meet, automatically, how can I put a smile on this person's face?
That's amazing. So we're going to take a break there, Pete, because
Sure.
we do need to have some adverts.
Okay.
But when we come back, we're going to talk to Pete more about this positivity and how you can do like small things a day to help yourself and to help others.
How would you get someone that's actually in intense pain, that it's hard for them to even sit and think that they could ask their pain in? How are you going to do it? Would you do that by steps, like slowly, slowly, gently, gently? Because
The first thing that you want to do is imagine that you're holding a sword and shield while setting the sword and shield down, and then walking up to an imagined sacred space, the door opening, and then your issue, say neck pain, walking through the door, and you welcome it. You say, well,
No, rien, de rien. Oh, I love you too, Marcel. Oh, bonjour, bonjour. I want to wear my face to the audience as I would a laver. And that is why I refuse to wear the makeup and the products, not unless they are organic. Because they make me feel nude. So, come on board, organic makeup companies, moving on TV.uk. Bonjour. No, rien, no. We're back, and on the community show today I am talking to Pete Lang, who's come all the way to High Wycombe, not from New York, but actually from where you live?
I live in Wokingham.
In Wokingham. Now, before the break, we were talking to Pete about positivity and how to make the world a better place just by doing little things, kind things, in spite of the fact that we're going through a lot. You know, people are going through grief and all sorts of stuff. And so I've got Pete here today who wants to say a little bit about that. So what can people do on a daily basis that not only makes other people feel good, but obviously if they do something nice for someone else, they're going to feel good inside. So how did you learn all of this? Were you brought up that way?
Actually, no. My parents grew up in wartime Europe, so there wasn't necessarily a lot of positivity going on there. And growing up in Queens, New York, there wasn't a lot of positivity. And how in most classes there's always one kid or two that everybody picks on?
That was you.
That was me.
Okay.
All right. And so I said, well, when I get the chance, I'm going to make sure that I do what I can to make sure that doesn't happen to other people.
Okay, so where did this come from? Because a lot of people that grow up with so much negativity and pain, they don't know how to be positive. They don't know how to be grateful. I never learned any of that. It took me a whole life transformation to be able to do this. So where did this come to? Did you have an awakening of some kind? Did you read a book?
Well, I mean, I'm going to have to say I was born with some of it. Mm-hmm. All right, because neither of my parents were terribly religious, and even though I went to a Lutheran primary school, all right, I inquired those kinds of questions. I just couldn't believe that life was meant to be miserable. All right, I wasn't prepared to accept that. Mm-hmm. All right, and I started exploring how to not be miserable. All right, and probably the first big thing that I discovered was there was a little notice behind the library that said, "Come to a class on transcendental meditation."
Okay.
All right, for free.
So that's basically the first thing that you
That was
did.
the first thing.
A lot of us go into positivity that way, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
and I mean, transcendental meditation is, I think, kind of more of a business and a scam than it is, a true, let's make the world a better place kind of an organization. But nonetheless, in today's world, you can just go, type into Google, how can I meditate, or how do I learn to meditate, or go to YouTube, and there'll be hundreds of videos that will show you how to do it. All right.
They all lead to the same thing. We all want to find that positivity.
There are thousands of different meditation techniques. All right. And they're not necessarily all for the same goal. All right. Now, basic transcendental meditation and many meditations, the objective is to bring you, a human being, in contact with the totality of humanity and with the universe. All right. So there's a lot of meditation that's associated with that. All right. But there's meditation on any topic. I've got on my computer, I've got probably 10 or 15 different meditations to help you lose weight.
Okay, so, but coming back to the positive thing,
Right.
what did you start using to help you to get through on a daily basis that people can do on a daily basis, would you say?
Well, for me, it was transcendental meditation. All right, and I'm not suggesting that is. I'll give you the meditation technique in the time we have left. Very simple. Okay. All right. Sit in a comfortable chair. Sit up as straight as you can, but don't freak out about being rigid. And breathe in. Say 1. Breathe out. Say 1. That's it. Keep and repeat. And then do that for as long as you want to do that for. Start off with 10 minutes, and then if you do that 20 minutes twice a day, in a month or 2, you will notice something is different.
Okay, and thank you, Pete. That's amazing, because what you're doing is you're focusing your mind. It's a bit like you could be sitting there looking at a candle, and you're looking at the flicker of the
Right.
candle,
Right.
and that brings your mind into focus,
Right.
doesn't it? It brings you into the moment.
That's right.
That's what it does.
But that is the objective of many forms of meditation. And I think personally that even people who do not believe in spiritual things are still trying to find a way to stay in the moment, because I think that's just something that human beings naturally do. That's one of the things that we have come to this world to figure out.
To stay in the moment.
How to stay in the moment. And if you can do that, you are staying closer to your higher power.
That's fantastic. So this helps you, and you've also got into Unity. When did you get involved in Unity, would you say?
I got involved in Unity in the 90s. And what happened was I had gone to a Unitarian Universalist church and decided I had moved and I wanted to go to another one. And I looked up an address in the phone book, and I thought it was a Unitarian Universalist church. It turned out to be a Unity church.
Right.
All right, and that's the first time I never even heard of Unity.
Okay.
All right, and they have a very simple 5 basic rules. That's it. There's no theology. There's nothing that you have to remember. Nothing that you have to agree to. All right. Nothing that you have to believe in. There are 5 rules, although if you don't necessarily believe in those, nobody's going to kick you out either.
Sure.
And then after that, it's a safe place for you to decide, the nature of your higher power and how you can get closer to it.
Okay, so moving on from Unity, that's where I met Pete, and over the last few years, and I as I said, I have failed that you would make an incredible presenter, host for Moving On TV.
I'm honored.
Because the whole point of Moving On TV is positivity and, teaching people how to rise above what's going on in our world. So how do you feel about that?
Quite excited.
Yeah.
I really am. I'm as you know, I'm studying to be a minister because, matter of fact, I finished all of my classes. All right, I've got a bunch of practical things before I get.
Did you get a title that we have to call you by?
Pete.
Just Pete.
Yeah. Yeah. You become a certified teacher. All right.
Right.
And then you become a minister.
Okay.
All right. So I'm working on my certified teacher bit. All right. But that gives you enough juice to be able to conduct the day-to-day affairs of a church. All right. Either here in Britain or in the United States. So because there are just so many people that are so sad, and I saw a BBC show about some outrageous number, like 5 million people in Britain will go an entire month without speaking to somebody on any kind of more than one sentence. And so the number of people, and it seems it's worse here than it is in the United States when it comes to that.
Moving on TV. Get them talking, get
That's
them
true.
interacting.
That's true.
The whole point.
And I really think that while the internet and TV is a wonderful thing, all right, one bad thing about it is that it makes it a lot easier to sit in your house by yourself.
Exactly.
All right,
That's what we're trying to get
and so before then, people would form groups. All right, and I can tell you, all right, as somebody who in their later years, obviously I didn't go to school here. All right, it is very, very hard, to meet people and to develop a social life if you didn't have one before you got here. So I'm when I'm thinking about when I go back to the United States, helping organize groups to get together, because people are like cattle and dogs. All right, they are herd animals.
Their followers.
Well, no. In other words, they are herd animals. They don't live by themselves. That's why
they like to be with people.
They like to be with other
They're
people.
social.
That's right.
And loneliness is not a
That's
natural
right. That's
thing.
right. Which is why solitary confinement is considered such an onerous punishment. All right, because are you doing anything particularly terrible to them? No. All right, you're feeding them. You're giving them a place to sleep. All right, it is you are depriving them from interacting with other human beings.
Exactly.
And
that's one of the problems, sorry Pete,
Yeah.
this is one of the problems, that loneliness causes depression and causes mental illness. As you know from my story, when I was in the wheelchair, the depressions were getting very serious. So what we're trying to do here is we want to bring people on, and as a host or a presenter or someone who's involved in this, in Moving on TV, we want to bring people on to get them out of the house, to find their uniqueness, to find their talents, to find anything that makes them feel that they're connected in some way to the human race. So, but I'm going to have to end the interview there. And it's wonderful having you here, and I'm really looking forward to you doing some interviews and possibly interviewing me. So that's it today for the community show. If you have a dream or a story, you're writing a book, you want to talk about anything that makes you feel good inside, or if there's any way that we can help you combat loneliness, combat unhappiness, and stop you from watching all the negative stuff out there, then please contact me. It's Laurene, Laurene at movingontv.uk. Come on board and we'll work together. Anyway, it's lovely speaking to you today, Pete. Thank you so much.
God bless.
Take care.
All right, cheers.
Namaste, everyone.
Welcome to the book show. It's really good to have you on. Thank you for Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the book show. I'm so grateful to be doing this again, as I haven't done for a while. And today I'm going to be interviewing Alison DeMarco with her book, The Citizen Cut. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the book show. So good to be here. I haven't done a book show for a long time. And welcome to Moving On TV. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Alison DeMarco about her book, The Signature from Tibet, which is a spectacular, heartwarming spiritual journey from the highlands of Scotland to Tibet. And it delivers a view on spiritual life coincidence, things like love, death, dying, and reincarnation. So here we have all the way from Scotland, all here on to Moving On TV in our studio here in High Wycombe on Zoom, the lovely Alison DeMarco. So hi Alison, how are you today? So hi Alison, it's so wonderful to see you here today.
Hi,
How are you?
Hi. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Really, really good.
Fantastic. And so you're in Scotland because it was kind of like all the way from Scotland to Tibet, for The Signature of Tibet, which is the book I'm going to be interviewing you about today. So you're in Scotland at the moment? Or?
Yeah, I've lived in Scotland. I lived in London for a while, actually Cyprus as well. And yes, I'm in Scotland.
Okay, what part of Scotland?
I'm in Edinburgh at the moment.
Wow.
I know.
A lot of affinity. I did the Edinburgh Fringe. I sold out at Edith Piaf.
Wow, did you?
I did, yeah.
I thought to look me up.
That was 2014 when we started Moving On TV. A lot happened, but it's not my story, that's my story. We're talking about your book today. So we're going to be talking about The Signature from Tibet. Mm-hmm. Before we go into the book, I want to find out a little bit about Alison. So if you don't mind going back to the beginning and telling us a little bit about your childhood, and of course, because all these influences from your childhood and where you started are all probably going to contribute to what you're writing anyway, and why you got to a level of writing that book. So if you could start in the beginning, that would be really nice.
Sure.
You.
Well, you know, my mother, I was actually adopted, and from that adoption, my adopted mother committed suicide, and then my father remarried a woman whom, you know, we didn't get on with, and she's tried to separate me from my father, kind of bully me. It was a whole string of dramas that, you know, came about. But in fact, you know, when I look back on it, I used to call her a witch, and I think in part it was she played mind games, and in turn I had to play mind games back. But I was actually really intuitive and an inquisitive child, and I used to ask questions about everything. Why this? Why that? And I used to see colours around everything, and that was the way I was. But people, you know, called me either bad or the wild child or couldn't be controlled, and eventually, you know, through different things and the things that happened to me in my childhood, I became anorexic. And from there, I actually had awareness that was what was wrong with me. And it was my boss who pointed it out. And so I managed to get myself through that. It was just a topic that you didn't hear much about in those days. And then from there, I just left home and began to drink, you know, took marijuana, and everything was just wonderful. And anything that had happened to me became almost like a party story, you know, bit of a laugh here, bit of a laugh, when none of it was funny whatsoever. And but it was my coping mechanism. And eventually I left home as soon as I could, and eventually ended up in a place called St Andrews, and then down to London. And I realised I could invent myself because nobody knew me. I could create a character. And I guess I did. And from there, eventually I came home. I'm cutting a long story short. There's lots of bits in between. But I always had this note about people's health or their emotional states. And of course I would say it, then I'd be in trouble. But at this point in time, I knew my father was very ill. In that period of time, I found my adopted mother and my family, and realised I had brothers and sisters, and met them. But I wanted to meet my father. And my mother had told an obedier a waste of time, and never worked. And it fell out with me because of that. So, or I fell out with her. There was a whole story attached to that. And I found my father had been and was a head chef, a musician, and we were so alike. In fact, my daughter was like, oh no, there's two of you now. So my mother emigrated to Canada, and in this process, I knew my dad was ill, and I just knew. And he died. Because I was at a funeral, my mother suddenly announced that my father was in hospital. And I just went, and she said, "You've got no right." I said, "What, every right?" I said, "He's going to die." And so she was like, "Yes, as usual, exaggerating. And what do you know? Nothing." But anyway, I got up to the hospital and managed to see him before he went to the operation. And he died that day. And I told my mother, I warned my mother, but so that was another, all these things. There was my son nearly died. So all these beliefs that if I loved someone, they would die, were acting out almost in front of me. And I had no idea really how to be a mother, and eventually hospitalized with nobody knew what was wrong with me, but the doctor said I had food poisoning. And I just knew, you know, you've got to give me something to calm me down. I'm off my head. I'm absolutely flying. And eventually a nurse, she said, "What happens, Alison?" Because my daughter had come in, and my daughter was only 5, and she wrote me a note, and it read, "Mummy, please come home. We love you." Do you know? And of course, the tears came, the floodgates opened, and a nurse said to me, "Right, what happens when a waste paper basket fills?" And I thought she was equally as mad as what I was. But I said, well, it overflows. And she said, "Think about it." So I signed myself out of hospital, and again had to claw my way back. I had a spiritual experience where I went in this tunnel, and this voice said to me, "Well, do you want to live or die?" Because I've been sitting in a chair for 6 months in silence. But I'd never considered that I was going to die. I just wanted to sit there because I couldn't do anything else. And I said, "Well, I want to live." And I did, and I started. And from that journey, I then found this complementary practitioner. And she was an aromatherapist and various different things. And when I went to her, it was a miracle. And she said, "So, you know, tell me a bit about your childhood." And the more I talked, she was like, "No wonder you're in this state." And that was the first sort of recognition. And then I went to a hypnotherapist, but it just, my whole world opened up because I found colour. And, you know, being dyslexic and having very low self-esteem, I found colour and I found the language, and I trained with the late Vicky Wall, and my life just became this amazing journey of learning and miracles and new skills and abilities that, and also almost what happened was I found the I am I was born as, not the one that, you know, people had put all their beliefs and conditioning and everything on. I found me, and wow, did I find peace.
Thank you. It's so amazing. All our stories are so similar. We all get stripped down to practically nothing. And that's what, you know, again, I don't talk too much about myself because it's your book and your story today. But the synchronicities between us spiritual healers or those of us that are doing the work, like you get stripped down to nothing. Everything leaves you, whether with me it was family that cut me off and mental breakdowns and not being able to get anywhere and feeling different. And like you say, you meet those people that suddenly say to you, you're okay. Yeah, it's okay. After you've been brought up to believe that everything about you is wrong.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating. So basically this all happened to you. And so how did you get to Tibet from Scotland? I mean, that's a big, well, and you know, it must have taken a while for you to grow to get to that level. How did that happen?
It is fascinating. I mean, I just do have to add that when I was 13, I had a visitation from this apparition who told me he had come in the image of Jesus. And for that, I've held all my life. And it saved me through, you know, whatever I've gone through, plus 2 lots of breast cancer and those stories are miracles within themselves. It's almost like I've had this hand beside me, guiding me, and I'm sure most people do. But it's been only more on reflection, you begin to really think about, wow, how amazing. And so how I got to, well, it was a strange day. I woke up one Saturday morning and I thought, oh, I think I'll go and get a new fridge. But somehow, I can't tell you how, I ended up outside our Edinburgh Property Centre. It was a Saturday, a busy day, you can't get parked. Oh, there a car pulled out, and into the centre I went. I didn't know why I was going into the centre. Didn't want to move house. And anyway, I was led to, I think it was something like the 6th row down, and so many pictures in. And then I saw this beautiful house and thought, got to buy it. And that in itself was the process, because I got stitched up by my lawyers on all many things, and I ended up going back to this lady who had helped me, her name was Bridget, get over, you know, my depression and everything else. And I said, I'm going to lose this house. My lawyer's not got me a mortgage. And immediately she said, you'll get your mortgage. I'm hearing you'll get it through the Allied Irish Bank. This house is for you. You will get this. Who do you know? Well, cut a long story short, I knew someone 10 years prior, and I managed to contact them within minutes. It all fell into place. Within an hour, he had come out to see me and got me my mortgage. And in those days, it was a large amount of money. It was something like 130,000 or maybe more, 130. And I couldn't sell my house, and I prayed to God. Then my ex-husband one day said, I'm going to buy your house, I'll help you out. I mean, it was like miracle upon miracle. So one day in this new property that was ramshackle, it was in the countryside, the opposite of how I had been living with my kids. It was just, but I used to say to the kids, look at the beautiful sunrises. You know, we may not have hot water, Mark. Anyway, one day this lady turned at my door, and I was gardening, saying to God, oh, you know, I can't cope with this, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know, I've got so much on my shoulders to get this place into what I wanted was a healing centre. firstly a house that we could live in properly. And so this lady arrived and banged on my door, and I said yes, and she went, "I've come to see you. I know that you've to come down to Sammy Ling with me." I'm like, "Who is this woman?" And she's like, "Oh, so and do you have herbal tea?" Oh, I said, "Do come in." Anyway, so she sat down, and cutting another long story short, she said, "We're going down to Sammy Ling next week to see Dr. Akon Toku Rinpoche." So I'm, yeah, okay. Who's he? What's that? What's Sammy Ling? And she said, "It's a Buddhist centre, the first in the West." Oh, Buddhist. Oh, okay. Well, we'll go down. Now that was the first part of me, and on that journey, we were maybe less than a mile from Sammy Ling. In this kamikaze crow flew into, I said to Joan, "Why is the bird flying at us?" And then it hit the window screen, so she slammed the brakes, picked the bird up. Oh, clearly it was dying, and she put it in the back of the car. And she said, "You in the back of the car with it." Anyway, we got to Sammy Ling, and I was looking this up today, and it was actually in 1994. That date is very significant, and I'll tell you why later. I only found that out today. So I ran into the office and I screamed at the first available monk, and I mean, it's very quiet there and very calm. And, I said, we've got a crow, it's dying, it's in the back of the car. Well, he thought I said, "We've got a body." Again, that's significant.
Oh my God.
He came out and he said, "It's a crow." I said, "Well, exactly." So he said, "Look, I'll take it to Akon Rinpoche to decide its fate." In those days, I'm saying in those days, and I don't believe in animal cruelty, I just wanted to put the bird out of its pain. So I said, "Well, why don't you just kill it? It's in pain." And I don't think he could believe what he was hearing. So the bird went to Akon Rinpoche, but we had a meeting with Akon Rinpoche. And the thing is, the nearer the meeting got, and he's the founder of Sammy Ling, the more hysterical I felt. And I just, all I could think of was this sort of, high lama sitting with a dying bird on his desk that we basically killed or, was responsible for. And we went in, and cutting a long story short, thank goodness, the bird had gone over to a nun to have its last few hours with this nun. But within 10 minutes, Akon Rinpoche said, "I will be the overseer to your project," which was the healing centre, "and I grant you a Dharma centre." Right.
Wow, so he was going to help you realise your dream, just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that.
I wasn't a Buddhist. I mean, I was just like, oh, hello. So we went over to the coffee shop where, we met this, we'd met before going in, who had taken the crow. And he said, "How'd you get on?" I said, "Well, it was a bit bizarre." I said, he offered to be my overseer and granted me a Dharma centre. And he was like, "Why would you do that?" I got Dharma. I said, "Yeah." I said, "What is a Dharma centre?" Well, it's a spiritual healing centre. And I said, "Well, maybe he'll change his mind." But the monk stripped his rosary beads. Akon changed his mind. No, he wouldn't say this. All right. And that began a huge process for me of going up and down with plans. And he didn't even read them. I would go in and he would look at the front cover, flick it over, 2 second, no, take them back. So this went on. And so this raised so many questions, like, what's he doing? What is this about? Anyway, so eventually I told my uncle the story. Now, this is where this all becomes very incredibly strange. So I tell my uncle the story. My uncle was a dentist in Edinburgh. And he said to me, he said, many years back, he said, a delegation came from, he said, I can't remember where it was, I think it was Tibet. One of them had toothache. He says, but I've never seen anything like it. There was an order I had to do things. he had all this entourage with him, and he told me a really funny story that the limousine was parked outside the dental surgery, and the traffic warden came in and said to my uncle's secretary, "That car out there, move it." And so my uncle's secretary said, "Oh, he's diplomatic immunity, I think. He's a High Lama from Tibet." And the traffic warden said, "I don't care if it's the Pope, move the car." And in that time, my uncle treated the dentist for who was His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, who is the overall teacher of the Kagyu lineage of Buddhist teachings. And Singling is Kagyu lineage, and the 16th Karmapa was the overseer to Akon Rinpoche and the building of Samiling. So now we're making a few connections here. So
to stop you there.
So then my uncle says to me, "Do you know what?" He said, "I've got his tour program." He said, "You can have it." So he gave me His Holiness the 16th Karmapa's tour program, and I just had it lying around for a while, and eventually I thought, "Do you know what? I've got no more plans for Akon. I've got no more plans. I'm going mad. There are no more plans. I'll take the program down." So I took the program down, and Akon, he was a very quietly spoken man, and every time I went in, the energy was absolutely incredible. For me, it was almost like everything in the room disappeared, and all that was left was Akon, and incredible. Anyway, so this time I said, "Well, would you like to see this? I've got no more plans." Because by now I'm actually really friendly with Akon, but I'm not a Buddhist, so I'm not quite as, I'm just more natural. But he was a very natural man, amazing, amazing person. So I showed him the program, and actually my friend heard him at the other end of the corridor. Well, I nearly fell off my seat, and he demanded to know how I got the program, where I got the program, and if I knew what was written on it, and who the person in the picture was. And of course, all of that, I hadn't a clue. I said, "Well, I said, "I have no idea. I didn't even know that was writing. It's just squiggles." And he said, "It's Tibetan writing. It's a message to your uncle from His Holiness in his own writing, the 16th Karmapa." And he signed it and dated it. And he said, "This is a very rare relic to the Buddhist community, the Buddhist Sangha, which is a Buddhist community." So that was in 74. Joan arrives at my door in 94. And really from then a huge journey opened up, because I ended up finishing, I stopped going down to Akon because there's no more plans. I lived in Cyprus for 2 years. And then almost the moment I came back, a friend, called me and said, "Oh, you're back." And I met Akon Rinpoche the other day. He tells me, "He's got unfinished business with you." Oh, here we go. Okay. So I phoned up, got an appointment with him, and went down to Samiling. And now that started another journey, up and down, up and down. Why have I got the signature? What am I doing with the signature? And every time, he just doesn't answer. You're meant to work it out yourself. So eventually I asked him the right question, which was, what should I do with it? What's the significance of it? I just don't know. And so can you tell me what the significance of this signature is? And he answered. He said, "No." He said, "I want you now to go to India and meet with His Holiness the 17th Karmapa."
Yeah. Sorry, Alice. Yeah, just something I wanted to take you back to very quickly of what you said. It felt in a way that something put you just in the right place with the right people, that your uncle had already connected, and then there was you. And can you go back a minute to the significance of the crow? Because isn't the crow a lot to do with death? Isn't there a symbolism of death in some way? Can you go back to that? Why did you think that happened? That crow actually
died in front of you or nearly died in front of you. Is there a significance there? Are you leading to it?
I think you're an incredible interviewer, and I think you're very, very intuitive, right?
I do tend to know what's coming next. I've had, hang on.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know, it's amazing when you meet like-minded people who think, you know, who are awake, because so many people I tell the story to, they totally miss the crow.
No, the crow is very important, and not only the crow, but what resonates with me, which will with a lot of people, is my massive recovery, because I was diagnosed with serious borderline personality disorder, which I don't believe in. It's post-traumatic stress. But I had been studying A Course in Miracles for years, and the psychiatrist that saw me knew I wouldn't take medication, so she offered me an alternative therapeutic community where you don't use medication, and that was it. That's how I had my massive awakening. So everything was constructed, everything led to it, and I can see it. But anyway, let's get back to you, Alison. So it's about the crow.
Well, I think, honestly, I do think you're amazing to pick up on that, because I would say 99% of people will not pick up on that. And so the question that you asked me is the answer, or one of the answers of this journey. And I didn't find out anything about the crow, and I'm now going on a different direction, until many years later when I began to write the book. And again, that's another story, but the crow. And yes, why did Akon Rinpoche say he'd be overseer and grant me a Dharma Center? All about the crow, in my opinion. This is my opinion, this is not Akon's. I never asked him. When I was researching many, many years later, sort of almost 2/3 of the way through the book, I kept thinking, what's the crow? There has to be a significance of this crow, because I've begun to write about the crow again. And I researched it. Now, firstly, for a long time, I had the word Drakkar in my head, Drakkar. So when my son was born, I said to my husband, I want him to be called Drakkar. And my husband's like, no chance, not happening. So we ended up, we called him Darrell. So I thought, right, well, the house in the country, I'm going to call it Drakkar. So this Drakkar had lived with me for a long time, the name. So the crow, I researched the crow, and the Buddhists believe it's a reincarnate Lama who is giving a message or alerting. And because the main deity, Milarepa, is represented by the crow. Now, many years later, when I was still researching, this book took 10 years. I was still looking at different things at different points that I wanted to know. It didn't all come at once. And Milarepa, his retreat where he spent, Milarepa apparently, and I hope I get this all right, is the first enlightened being in a lifetime. And he would meditate in a cave. And the cave was called Drakkar. So, you know, there was all these interwoven little snippets that really didn't come to light till much, much later. Now, my son, when he was 13, well, I won't go into story, but suffice to say, he decided he was going to become a hermit. He was going to live in the Highlands of Scotland, and he was going to write music and poetry, just as Milarepa did. Wow. However, my son is not going to wear any of that. Even when I told him I was going to call him Drakkar. No. So,
okay. Can I take it back again to the crow? Because my intuition is working here, okay? In the book, you talk about dying. You talk about the whole thing is a lot about dying and reincarnation. Now, you said in the beginning that one of your biggest fears were loss, that everyone you loved would die. So is that what one of your journeys was? Do we have to confront that big issue
in order to go out there, in order to have this awakening, so that we can actually tell the human race, you know, what they don't know, so we can enlighten them in some way, because that kind of resonates with me with what you were saying before.
Yes, I'm saying yes, and I think what happened was, for a long time, I didn't lose my faith. I never lost my faith. I just didn't really acknowledge it. And I think coming sort of almost full circle, and then coming to the Buddhists and coming to a space where you learn, you begin to understand life, you wake up, and then you look at these things instead of in a sleep state, and you do it because you're consciously aware of your thinking. So when I was asleep, I would fear death because I didn't have the information, I didn't have the knowledge, I was running patterns. Everybody around me and beliefs that I loved had died, including, you know, my adopted mother, etc. So I had all these beliefs, but I think, you know, when I came back and I found this, I really did wake up and I found spirituality again. Then I found the way I look at it is Jesus, and I found God. But I also learned the spiritual side to a degree of Buddhism. Didn't become a Buddhist because I like to say I'm non-denominational. But I think when you have this knowledge, it's knowledge that we lack causes fear, and it's our thinking. When we can control our thinking, which is, you know, that chatterbox, it just goes on and on and on and on, then when we can control that, or understand it, or be able to stop it, just to give us a little rest, I came to that point of the faith that there is life after death in me, and that what I also know is that the researchers have found that at this moment of conception, there's a spark of light, and many people who have passed over have to, you know, have come back, have said they saw the light, and we know that in the beginning there was light. So light surrounds us. We have an electromagnetic field, and the more we are, then the more able to understand that that's where we will return to. Almost like when I do my readings, I get messages from people who've passed on that I couldn't possibly know. So there is this energy. It's waves and waves of different vibrations of energy, and we can tap into them.
So you see, I didn't know when I interviewed you that we were going to get into, I'd say, the biggest reason that people have gone into such panic and fear is the fear of death. I think it's the biggest fear there is, and if we were born to embrace it, I was thinking about, when I did my talk before, about how they shoot Bambi's mother. When you're a child, you go to see a film, and the first thing they show you death and violence, but they don't explain it to you that, you know, she doesn't come back as an angel. She doesn't come back as something positive. It's a shock to a tiny child. And that's how we're brought up. I wasn't allowed to even talk about death because there was so much in my mother's life that it was banned. The word death and the word shit were two things that we were not allowed to talk about or even say in the house. So when I decided to do this interview with you, I never realized that this was actually going to be touching on, I'd say, the main reason that the world has gone mad is the fear of death. It takes you right back. It's such a helplessness because we don't know. So what I'm interested in is, in the book where you talk about this, can you talk a little bit about what's in the book about dying and reincarnation and all the issues that people just don't know? I mean, you get people that say they've had experiences and they know. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to me. I think I've experienced things, and I'd like to think that I would move on in a positive way, or I don't know, maybe I'd come back again and experience the chaos, which I really don't want to. Go to another planet, ideally. But no, coming back to what I really want to ask is, how can you explain it? What do you want to say about that? What experiences did you have that may be able to help a lot of people that are in so much fear? I'm not scared of dying for standing up for humanity anymore. I've gone past that now. And I think a lot of people have, because we, you know, it's obvious now. But a lot of people are so scared of losing their lives that they would rather be stuck and believe what they're told than to even take a glimpse into what that light is. So what is death? What is death in layman terms? What do you feel your experiences of that truth? What is it?
Well, I think for me, it's a huge subject, and it's not one I would say that is easy explained. But from my point of view, I have to say, I mean, I've nearly died quite a few times, twice with cancer. But I think you have, when you're in that situation, you do have to wake up, and you almost fear it in the moment. And then I came to a realization, almost that to trust the process. And as it was, miracles happened on that journey. But in God, in the energy. And the second thing is, with these scientists having found a link, also know that we're brought up not as the person that we truly are, because we take on board other people's behaviors, beliefs, conditioning. So if we can get ourselves back to who we truly are and find our purpose, know our personality, know everything about us, and find our purpose, and look out to, you know, stand up to help other people. My mission is to help the Tibetan people after the Chinese invasion. And again, a very delicate subject. So for me, it's my belief in God and that spark of light in the beginning and the spark of light when we pass over. Now, what I do is I do this sort of breathing technique, and it actually brings your mind into your body. Now it's a strange thing for me, because we go around just really expecting our body and knowing that our body does everything for us. But when we really but when we stop the thinking and we get into the mind, not the thinking, we get into the mind that's within the body, we feel our body as almost a light energy. Now, we know that when we pass over, the body dies, the heart stops, there is no more functioning. So I think you have to look at your beliefs to say, so where does the mind go? Because we know all these highly trained lamas and other guru figures can take their mind out of their body. They can move. They can separate from their body. They can look down on the body. People who have passed over and come back look down on their body. So we have to then look at it through our own beliefs and learn and see what does happen or what possibilities do happen. And so I think for me, my belief is we come in with a spark of light, we go out with that spark of light. And within that spark of light, it's unique to us in this lifetime. And it holds all the energy, vibration, information, and knowledge that we've gone through in this lifetime and in others.
Thank you. Okay. So coming back to the signature from Tibet, why the name? What does the name mean? What's this? What does it signify? What's the symbol? Where did you get it?
Well, His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, he was known and was seen to perform miracles. This is a very highly revered Lama, who very much like, you know, there is a Dalai Lama, but His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, he's 16th because he's reincarnated from the 15th. So this lineage has got all the teachings, high teachings. I mean, teachings that would be beyond my comprehension of the mind, etc. And he was the teacher to Akon Rinpoche in Tibet. And so there's another link. And Akon Rinpoche escaped Tibet over the Himalayas through these horrendous conditions. 300 of them, he was in a party of 300 and only 13 made it. And I believe I'm saying the right thing, that they were the High Lamas that had trained their minds to survive with no food through the minus whatever 30, 40, 50 conditions, and also pursued by the Chinese. So, so when he came to Scotland, is now my belief, he left his signature for a purpose. This is all planned. They can see the future. These people, I've had experience. I'm talking from experience. They are absolutely incredible people.
And when you say he left his signature, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes. So he sat, when he went to my uncle, out of all the dentists in Edinburgh, he could have gone to, he chose my uncle, right, from possibly a list of a few people that were given from the embassy. He had toothache, you know. He came here, I believe, on the 74 tour. I believe he knew he was leaving his signature. Now, I also believe, I've got a feeling, I think I'm right in saying that they used to have like a stamp, a seal, or, but anyway, he personally signed and wrote in his own handwriting a message of thanks to my uncle, and signed and dated it. Therefore, he's saying, I'm leaving my signature here.
Okay.
Why did he do it? Well, you know, but we know also two things. I know as well is that the Chinese invaded. They destroyed a lot of his signatures, a lot of his paperwork. We also know that there is the Karmapa controversy, which was that the Chinese put in another Karmapa as the 17th. So when the 16th Karmapa died, in fact, it was Akon Rinpoche was one of the people who had to go and find this young boy who was the reincarnation of the 16th Karmapa.
Right.
There's a very interesting story that I did read in a book, so I'm just repeating it, and that Akon Rinpoche had asked the 16th Karmapa, how am I going to recognize you? And the 16th Karmapa had said that he would give him a tooth.
Oh, right.
That would be between those two. It is recorded in a book. And when Akon Rinpoche did eventually meet with him, the little boy gave him a tooth. And that's why he recognized this, or not, that's not why, he recognized the 17th Karmapa based on information that he had, that the 16th Karmapa had left.
Mm.
There's a court case because the Chinese put in their own Karmapa. So there is now two Karmapas who live in India. Now, this is, so here we come in, I now have a signature and a handwritten message in His Holiness the 16th Karmapa's handwriting, and Akon Rinpoche tells me to take it to the 17th Karmapa. So when, again, I'm not really thinking too much about this or why, I just decide to go. By a miracle, my son decides to come, which is very unusual for him to want to have travelled anywhere with me. But we go, and this is fascinating because we go to visit His Holiness in, you know, where he is at his monastery, and there's armed guards. And my son, whether it was from the aeroplane that looked like it was polyfillered up, it was Buddha Air actually, and from, you know, the kamikaze, the drivers, it was just, my son kept saying, we're going to die, we're going to die. I kept saying, well, that's part of it, it's fine, we're totally fine, don't worry about it. So when he saw the armed guards, he's like, this is it. So I just walked up to them and I said, I've got a very important document to show His Holiness the 17th Karmapa, Dr. Akon Tuku Rinpoche sent me. So eventually, they sent down the secretary to His Holiness, who said, well, you can show me the document. I says, no, I can't. It's only to show His Holiness the 17th. He said, well, 3 weeks. I said, no. I said, no. I said, I'm returning to Scotland in 2 days. I need to see him tomorrow. And so he wrote it in his book. So he said, right, come back here at 11. So my son, we left and we went back the next day, and the armed guards, we don't recognise you. You don't have an appointment. You're not all. I said, don't even go there. No. I said, I'm here on a mission. I said, where's the secretary? I need to see the secretary, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, we got to see His Holiness the 17th come up, and that, I just never experienced anything like this. The energy was, and he was sitting, and I don't really know the Buddhist protocol, but I thought you were meant to be lower than him, but he was sitting really low. So, and he's with us, and I think an interpreter, and his energy is beyond. And I thought, well, I'm going to start laughing. So I said, well, look, I said, Dr. Alcom Tuku, she sent me. I have this tour program of yourself. Oh, well, the 16th, which is what, anyway, would you like to see it? And he's like, yeah. So I had to bring it over, and I took it over, and then I sat back down, and he turned to the interpreter. He stares at the program, because in theory that should be his signature. That should have, he should recognise this. So then he said to me, please tell me the story. Oh, okay. So I told him the story, and I said to him, look, so if this is a rare relic to the Buddhist Sangha, what should I do with it? And he said, you put it in a book for the world to see. I was like, wow. Oh, wow, really? But we came out of there, and what was interesting was, we were hysterical. It was so embarrassing. We had to walk down a line of about 100 people who were waiting to see him. We had been in for about 20 minutes. Usually, I think you only get 2 or 3. And we were hysterical. Son and I, you know, when you get ill and you want to roll around and you just can't breathe. It was, so that when we got to the airport, there were 2 monks there, and they said, so, you know, we're interested. How did you get so long? So I said, because I've got this program. Oh, I see it. So I brought it out, and one of them was crying. You know, it was an incredible journey, and
just meant to be. So, I mean, the question that comes up here is, why do people's lives not always go like that? I mean, why do people not get directed and guided in that way? What do you think stops them? What holds them back?
Well, I think a lot of people are, without not being disrespectful, I think they're asleep, because they've become so desensitized because of, whether it's our schooling, our peers, society, you know, to be honest, society expects you to behave in a certain way. And when you don't, you know, they're possibly either going to give you medication or, you know, lock you up, but so there's not, in a lot of cases, we can develop that. I'm not anybody, well, don't think I'm any different from anyone else. We're human beings, we're all the same. But by some reason, I believed I had a purpose. I saw this vision that said they had come in the image of Jesus, and I held that with me. And I think some people, you know, you've got a purpose. You've found your purpose, and other people have as well. And I think for those who haven't, start looking, wake up, because I think we're more awake when we're asleep in our lovely dreams, you know.
It's really interesting. As I'm talking to you, you brought up a memory in me. I used to be a gutsy little girl when I was born in Ireland, and they took me to Israel. And I'll never forget it. I don't know if you knew Moshe Dayan. Moshe Dayan was one of the high captains in the army, and he had an eye patch. And I remember as a little girl, I had so much guts. I don't know what happened to me after about the age of 13. a lot. I know what happened to me. I'm not going to go into it, but I was numbed down completely.
Yeah.
In my teens, completely. But I would go up. I went up to Moshe Dayan. I thought it was Moshe Dayan. I went up to him and I said, "Are you Moshe Dayan?" Just like that, straight to him. I was doing the same with Golda Meir. She was on the same kibbutz as my aunt. No fear whatsoever. Right up there, confronting her, saying, "Oh, hi, are you Golda? Can I have my picture taken?" Or, you know, there was so much courage. And then bit by bit, it was pushed down, pushed down.
Yeah.
And then it's all come up. It's all come up, and now you're inside. We're all coming into this space now, this awakening, where it's time for people to say, "I've had enough," and we can see it happening. And I'm very excited about what's happening. I think it's all being constructed. I think it's that it's happened. Actually, the good guys have made it happen for a reason, in order to wake up as many people as possible. Like we're seeing this, all lives matter. It's extraordinary. Suddenly people are saying we all matter. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's seeing beyond. But anyway, before we finish, because I could go on forever with you, so much to talk about. What is your favorite part of the book? And could you read us maybe a small part of the book that you really, really enjoyed writing, or maybe was your favorite part?
I think that's quite hard to know, but I will tell you I've got the book, so I will tell you that
it will appeal to a lot.
It's very difficult because it continues. But I tell you what I will do. I'll show you this picture. Can you see that? I'm not sure where I'm meant to put the camera. Can you see it?
No, I can't. It's hang on.
This is just, let me get to the I just want to get to the very part. I should have got this organized. Part 2, right? I wrote. Hold on. I wrote part 2. So I wrote part 2 before I wrote part 1, and to write part 2, because I had wanted to go. Well, I decided I was going to Tibet to research this book. Akon Rinpoche said, "Absolutely not. Do not go." But of course, I didn't listen, and I went with my son. And the Chinese picked us up in Kathmandu and refused us entry. Told us we were spies, journalists and spies. So we didn't get to go. So I had to then write everything that I did about Tibet from my mind. I felt as if I lived in Tibet for months and months and months, writing this. But my favorite part that I always found very difficult to work through, because it begins with a soldier's story in 1850. Now this was in Scotland, so this was the first part prior that I wrote second, if you see what I mean. It's the.
How does that connect to the story? A soldier in.
Okay, so exactly. So how it connects is that there's a soldier, a young boy, who is living in this estate in the Highlands of Scotland, and he doesn't want to be the estate manager. He doesn't want to work for his father, but the local girl who is there, who he knows, he has this sort of affair with, but she's in love with him. You know, they're very young, but she's absolutely in love with him, and she's just like the housemaid. And but anyway, he runs away not knowing she's pregnant, because this book spans generations of reincarnation, and so he becomes a soldier, and he ends up in Tibet in 1901, in inverted commas, the peaceful peace treaty of 19. It wasn't a peace treaty; it was a bloodbath.
Nothing was.
All this, whatever. is nonsense. So I think, you know, the end part of his story is, maybe I should read it. I'm not very good at reading. So do you want me to read it, what, one paragraph?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, it's something that's actually going to maybe touch certain people that cannot be touched. And if you reach those people that may not be able
Well, I
to,
maybe need to read a wee bit more. As I say, being dyslexic's never easy. So if I hiccup, I'll just start again.
you're fine.
So it's chapter 11, and it's the first story in the book of 4. So, and we're talking about the soldier, and he's basically coming from the garden. He's coming back in, and he's going back up to sit in his chair by the fire in this large mansion. And he sits at his desk. I'm skimming because I don't want to read you all the paragraphs all to be here. But he's got something to do. He's got to write this letter. Okay, so he's writing this letter. He's had a revelation now. He's understood his life, because his soul stayed in Tibet, because he another story, he fell in love with a Tibetan woman, not too much, but she anyway. You have to read it anyway. So he's written his letter, and now going to sit by his chair. And so this is I'll have to read a few. This is significant. Okay. Made him loosen his collar, and as he did so, he felt the coral cord round his neck. Now the coral cord is significant as well. It's Tibetan. His shaking hand reached up to touch the amulet against his no longer youthful skin. First time since putting it on, he lifted the amulet up and over his head. He'd worn it next to his skin since the day it was given to him by the dying Lama in Tibet, and he now held it tightly in his left hand. Decades of time reversed his mind. Just as he glanced down at the amulet and wondered who had taken it from him, and who would take it from him, a tingling sensation moved up his arm. A searing pain then gripped his chest, and he saw a grey mist swirl round him and round him that made him feel giddy and slightly sick to his stomach. His ears hurt, as if somebody was clashing a pair of large brass cymbals next to his head. He felt and heard his heart racing faster and louder as he became the heartbeat. As he surveyed this is the change, okay? So as he surveyed the expanse of his room and all that had kept him company throughout the years, his eyes glimpsed what he thought was a flash of turquoise, indigo and black coming from outside his window. Perhaps cast by the light of the moon, but in an instant he wondered if it was possible. The crow was long dead, lifeless and mounted. It sat glaring himself, and just as this thought occurred to him, he found himself facing the dead bird, looking back at him. Now he was outside, looking up into the branches of the trees that intruded upon his view from the study. What? No crows roosting in the tree this afternoon? Where did they all go, he wondered. Slowly, he crossed the gravel driveway. There was no sound of footsteps. He reached the ornamental pond where the white lilies were picked out by the fading light of the afternoon, and he saw the soft petals stained with streaks of pink, and was held in their essence, safe and protected. He wanted to hold the beautiful flower in his hands, yet he found himself encased within its petals. As he felt himself travelling faster and faster upwards, it was now the wild lotus flowers that flourished across the foothills of the Himalayas. that he wanted more and more than anything to see again. He travelled across the manicured green lawns of Corby's Glen. Stern and reproachful adult voices gave way to the familiar laughter and teasing of the children of his youth. He traced the path of light from the moon's lustre to the grey stone sentinels that guarded Corby's Glen entrance. With no effort, he was now free of them. They drifted past him, just as they had that fateful dark night all those years ago. For a brief moment, there is only darkness and fear, soon replaced by shivering of grey stone that seemed to beckon him, a wall of white peaked greenness that drew him closer to offer peace. He drifted the white peaked wooden peaks and descended into another green, a green that swayed with the wind, the green of the meadows and streams rough hewn by nature, not man. Okay, so there's more.
Your way of, your description of writing.
But the final sentence, because obviously he's on a journey, the final sentence is that leads to part 2, is a muffled voice then became crystal clear. Me thong dawa bo mu. Si dawa, it's a girl.
What does that say that again?
And I'm sure you'll pick up on what and that takes you into part 2, which is in Tibet.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible. It's been amazing talking to you. Just look out on Audible because I'm not very good at reading books at the moment. I've got so much to do, but I would love to be able to listen to this. Me and my husband sometimes we sit and listen to books together.
Yeah.
I want to get it if it's out on or some kind of audiobook. How can people get the book?
Okay, so it's on Amazon, The Signature from Tibet. It's on my website, www.alisondemarco.com. It's available on audio only through me because the file is so big, but we haven't done it on audio. So it's one of those computer voices that it's about. So it is a huge, and I'm not technical, so how to get it on audio or Audible, I think it is. So yeah, I mean, it's on Kindle on Amazon. It's on Amazon, and it is available on download from myself if they email me. But how I do that is it's a big one.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, thank you.
Before we go, is there anything that you feel you'd like to say to anyone at all that may be struggling? I mean, let's look at the fact that you got books done. A lot of people want to do books. They have these dreams. Everyone's got a story in them. Everyone's got a book. How did you get yourself to a point where you could write a book? How did you focus yourself? What did you do to make that goal happen?
I think, well, it first started many years ago when I happened to be on holiday, and as you do, I saw this crystal ball gypsy, and I thought, well, why not? So I went in, and she told me everything that I already knew. So I said, well, that's incredible. But anyway, what about something? And she said, you'll write a book. And she told me exactly how it would happen. And she said, but watch the second book. So it'll go to America. And it'll be huge. And also she gave that information. I just so truly believe that I want to help Tibet and the suffer, it's hard to imagine is going on, that these people, they can't even talk about the Dalai Lama, or, I mean, it is horrendous. But, and I believe that this book, if it could be made into a film to get the message out there of lots of things, like, reincarnation. And as you said, people are scared of death, they're scared of pain, they're scared of illness, scared of loneliness. loneliness, you know, and for the people is look as to who you are, the real you. Have faith in yourself, get help if you, and just know that you are so capable of so much more.
Thank you, Alison. And you've been through so much yourself. Obviously, we haven't got time to discuss all the experiences you have. Thank God you're well. And I'm very well, thank God. And that you are on the path, you found your path through all of this suffering, trauma, and now you've gone out and you've created the life you love, but you've done it because you love humanity. And that's what gets me up. That's what gets a lot of people up in the morning, tense, feeling like, oh, I've had a terrible day, or I haven't slept, or whatever. I'm still going to go out there. I'm still going to put my part into this tapestry or this jigsaw.
Yeah.
And another thing is as well is that we need to rest. A lot of people seem to forget that we, you know, we work intensely a lot of time. And I think this is now also an opportunity to know that because of our work, we sent the ripples out, and we're sending the ripples out. But we need to step back and take care of ourselves and self-nurture. And I presume that's in a lot of your work as well, is you've got nurture, and you've got to learn the lessons yourself, and then go out and teach them. And everything is a gift. People don't realize it, that if you can, I can understand that you would say that your cancer was a gift in some way for you to be able to do work. And people that understand that are ready to accept everything, to be able to say thank you, to say I'm grateful for the gifts, these gifts that were given to me, that were not what I wanted, or my, you know, the ego didn't want it, the way we were brought up, the personality, identities didn't want it, but we needed it. And everything is perfect. Everything is so synchronized. And I expect that you can see that as well.
It truly is. And I think if people wake up, find their purpose, but you know, one of the things I do, like you're talking, you have to look after yourself, is I absolutely do, it's an 11-minute breathing exercise in the morning, and it's amazing. And then I go and have a cold shower, and then walk, do my exercise, eat healthily. But I think it's also out towards what's happening, and just stop. Think about everything that's negative that you're thinking, that you're bringing in. You need it. Even making negative comments, judging people. We don't need to. We should be coming together. We should be standing up for our rights, not fighting each other, joining. And I believe that this is opening. I believe there's a porthole that is opening, and people will be able to see it if you can't. Because you are, as a person, entitled to be happy, to enjoy life, and you just need to stop the thinking.
You're allowed to be free.
That's right.
Say whatever you want to say, as long as you're not inciting violence or to hurt anyone physically. You're allowed to say what you feel, and that's what we're going back to. I do believe it. And so coming full circle, the crow and the talk about, shall we just end with that? Maybe just a little message that may come to you in your intuition. How can we end this? We could bring it full circle with life, death being a circle, and it's all cool. And you go, you come back, you go, you come back. You learn your lessons, and you rest. And I think we've got to a point now, those of us that are reincarnated, this is glorious. This is the time when we are going beyond all the veils, the apocalypse, but we are finding what held us back.
there's always been this questions like myself, why out and do talks? Why will the media not let me talk about Simply Amazing, about my life, about recovery without medication? Blocked everywhere. And it's like, okay, I get it now. I get everything now. I understand everything. And do you see what I mean?
Yeah, there's
not telling the story that they want you to tell anymore.
No, I think that there's a process of life, of between life, birth and death. And we all know, it's a fact, we're going to die. So we have to expect and make the most of our life. Because we'll crack at it and we can do some amazing things when we look outwards and not just, looking. And I know it can be very difficult, but you cannot feel fear if you haven't thought the thought. You can't, it's not possible. So it's, and I go back to being, while we're alive, be awake, get to nature, understanding life as a frequency, a color, a vibration, and that you are more, and you can pick up on more, telepathy, whatever, you can pick up on people and develop that.
Thank you so much, Alison. I think this is going to go a show.
That would be lovely, because I have to say I really like talking to you, because I know you get it. I think that's lovely.
I do, and my life has been developing in extraordinary ways that I'm starting to see more and more the progression. But it's been amazing talking to you. A taboo subject of death, which is something they do death counts, but I mean, I have people saying to me, I'm absolutely terrified of death and I can't deal with it. So it needs to be talked about, and I'm very grateful that this is brought with the reincarnation, so the end and the beginning, things ending and starting again and coming full circle. So it's been a pleasure, and
thank you.
Enjoy the people. What part of Edinburgh are you in, by the way? Because I know Kirkcaldy, I know the areas around there.
Yeah, I'm out. Where would I be? I'm out sort of west, but literally about 15 minutes from Haymarket Station. So you probably know Haymarket Station, but going west. So, but still in Edinburgh, but not in the heart of Edinburgh.
Okay.
15 minutes from the centre, so it's lovely.
One of the things, again, I think we're going to end, and it just came into my mind, was oxygen, how important people don't realise. Oxygen is, as you said, nature. And the last time I went to Edinburgh, as I say, I have a really good friend in Kirkcaldy, beautiful area, and the beach. I love Kinghorn. It's one of my favourite places. Want to be there. I love it. Absolutely love it. And one of the things last time I was in Edinburgh is I went to the MS Centre to have oxygen, because when I was having continuous oxygen, you can go there and have it for pain or, to detach. It was incredible. I mean, it did me so quickly from my grief, the grief I had. And I didn't have one cold that year, not one cold. And this is exactly what you're saying. We have to be out in nature. We have to be God, or love, the way I like to call it, love, is given us every reason to stay well, to have a good life. And the way things have gone a few months with this lockdown, those of us that never locked down the whole time in nature and getting stronger and healthier are the ones that are wide awake now, and we can see what's happening. You can see these, like you writing a book, they are writing stories for us to watch, like a different story every couple of months. And what's going to be the next one?
What's coming next?
I'm hoping that people are going to be standing out there, like we've had traumatic childhoods. They're going to be standing out there with all the sex and you know, bringing the innocence. But I'm going to finish there because of time now. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
There, and we'll go and find the book and contact you. And thank you so much for coming on so quickly. You know, when I did this in the past, it was so difficult for me to get people. And now I can get Brad Yates on, boom, you know. There's a few people I'm trying to get on here. Apparently Donald Trump. I love
that would be a joy.